What do you expect to encounter as we head in here?
I expect a little bit of resistance to any questions I might ask about the integrity of the system.
With big questions about the security of electronic voting machines, we followed former Diebold voter outreach specialist Chris Hood.
All right, let's go vote.
Casting his vote at an early polling station in Broward County, Florida. And from the beginning, we're running into resistance.
He can go in. The camera cannot go in.
We wanted to observe Chris Hood entering the polling station.
So I'm going to vote.
To do what any voter can do, question the integrity of the e-voting system that he and many others say is seriously flawed.
Companies like ES&S, Sequoia, and Diebold stepped in, provided absolute junk to the marketplace, and they called it a voting machine, and that's what we're stuck with today.
Hood knows a lot about electronic voting because at Diebold, he personally trained people to use the touchscreen voting systems. But he started getting suspicious of the company in July of 2002 in Georgia, and now he's blowing the whistle. In his first on-camera appearance ever, Hood says he and other employees covertly inserted software called a patch into the voting machine.
So you actually went into a warehouse and inserted cards into a machine before an election in Georgia?
Yes. The patch that I inserted was sort of a secret, and even those who were overseeing our activities from the state of Georgia were not to know about it.
Diebold has publicly disputed that statement. GoTV contacted company officials, and they have yet to respond. Hood says the software patch was never certified by the state, and there's no way to tell if those machines were rigged to alter the election because Diebold voting machines provide no paper trail. Those very same machine models were used in the 2004 Maryland election, where Hood says Diebold employees personally tabulated votes in violation of state law.
Yes, I was there. I assisted. I was one of the people who were feeding memory cards into the touchscreens.
Were there any election officials there?
Zero. We had total control of the environment.
It takes one person. That's why this is such a danger to not just to our elections, but to our national security.
Brad Friedman is speaking out about the issues surrounding e-voting on his blog. His message? When it comes to e-voting machines like these, votes and entire elections can be stolen.
People want to believe that doesn't happen in this country. And it's America. We don't steal elections.
And knowing the Diebold system inside and out, Chris Hood says stealing an election is a lot easier than you may think.
It would take maybe a dozen people to fix a national election. A dozen people to fix it. Just a dozen.
GoTV obtained these documents, and Chris Hood says they confirm serious technical problems with Diebold voting systems, computer screens freezing during elections in Georgia, and vote tabulation discrepancies in Maryland. But glitches during the election are the least of his concerns. Hood says the scariest thing he witnessed while working for Diebold is the lack of security before the elections for voting machines and the memory cards containing critical voting software.
Pre-election, before these cards are actually put in the machine, they're handled in a very sloppy manner. They're not under lock and key. They're floating all over warehouses. They're on the floor. They're on tables. They're everywhere. And that's the real risk.
And computer experts agree. Lax security leaves the voting machines open to hackers who could install voting viruses to steal elections. This past summer at Princeton University, a professor and 2 graduate students successfully hacked into a Diebold voting machine. In this video from the university, you can see how they used a simple memory card to install a vote-swapping virus that spreads to other machines, covers its own tracks, and quietly changes an election outcome. Proof, they say, it can be done by exploiting security holes Chris Hood knows all too well. It's the reason why he's now blowing the whistle and speaking out against his former employer.
I think somebody needs to talk about this. Somebody needs to talk about what's being covered up. And the reason more people don't talk is because their jobs are at stake. Their futures are at stake. And I don't regard my future as more important than the future of the American voter.
So just how safe is your vote? To find out, we're going to show you one of these voting viruses in action, stealing an election. We're also going to take a very close look at one of these machines. We'll gain access to the files inside and hack the vote.